Hey everyone, and welcome to the tutorial on maximizing DPS as a Ret Paladin from BuyBaylor.com. Today we will be talking about rotation, seals, stack monitoring, and attack range. This video assumes that one has geared themselves properly and already understands the theory crafting behind a Retribution Paladin. So let's get started. A Retribution Paladin's standard buffs should be Retribution Aura, Blessing of Might, properly spec'd to 2 points in the Retribution tree, and a Seal of Vengeance for a single target, or Seal of Command for groups. It has now become significant enough for Ret Pallies to make macros to swap out their Librams to match with their seals. To maximize DPS, if one is in possession of all Librams, one needs to make a macro for Seal of Vengeance and Libram of Three Truths, Seal of Command and Libram of Discord for groups, and a third for Seal of Righteousness and Libram of Discord if one is planning on doing Professor Putricide on 25-man. While on the topic of buffs, let's talk about some different elixirs and foods that can be used to buff strength. Dragonfin fillets and elixirs of mighty strength both have significant strength buffs. However, as an alternative to elixirs, one should use Flask of Endless Rage for raiding. Retribution Paladins use a rotation called First Come First Serve, also known as FCFS. However, despite the invitation to a free-for-all for button mashing, certain abilities do take priority over others. Things that factor into this are the number of mobs, range, and damage that they do. Here is a priority for Ret Rotation for maximizing DPS on single target mobs, with a 2-piece T10 bonus. Judgment is greater than Divine Storm, which is greater than Hammer of Wrath, which is greater than Crusader Strike, greater than Consecrate, greater than Exorcism, which is greater than Holy Wrath. For multi-target mobs, one should use the following rotation. Divine Storm, which is greater than Judgment, greater than Crusader Strike, greater than Consecrate, greater than Hammer of Wrath, greater than Holy Wrath, which is greater than Exorcism. For long trash pulls like ICC, it might be worth considering Divine Storm, greater than Crusader Strike, greater than Consecrate, greater than Judgment, greater than Hammer of Wrath, greater than Holy Wrath, greater than Exorcism. Once a rotation has been established, the most important thing for a Retribution Paladin to do is to watch their stacks. This is important because it allows for the most efficient use of cooldowns such as Trinkets and Holy Wrath. There are 2 stacks we will talk about here. They are the stacks of Holy Vengeance and the stacks that come from the Libram of Truth called Formidable. As was just pointed out by the mouse over, Holy Vengeance stacks are found on one's target. Holy Vengeance stacks to 5, and are not to be confused with the Stack of Vengeance, which is a blue stack found on the character's buff section. Normal Vengeance only stacks to 3 stacks. If one is using the Libram of Three Truths, one will find the stacks called Formidable that stack once every time Crusader Strike is used. This stacks 5 times and builds up enormous strength over time. Once the stack is maxed out, one can freely pop Avenging Wrath at any time. Here's an example of the things just discussed in this run of 25-man Vault of Archivon. Notice that the Seal of Command is up because with trash greater than 1 target, Seal of Command does much better DPS. One important thing to remember is, if possible, to always DPS from the back of the target. This is because a target cannot parry from the back. Notice that since the mobs are facing in the opposite direction, a position is taken to DPS from the side. However, after one target is downed, a new position is taken directly in back of the remaining target. As soon as the last target is down, Seal of Vengeance is buffed for the boss. Finally, before pulling the boss, it is a good idea to check all buffs, including Pally Power, to make sure that everybody has received their proper buff. After a ready check is made, the tank can proceed to pull the boss. Once combat has started, one should immediately start watching Holy Vengeance if they are not using Libram of Truths. And also pay attention to any stacks that would maximize DPS. For example, the stacks from the Hercumia War Token, which stack to 20. One will probably notice a drop in DPS ranking at first, which is to be expected if using the Libram of Three Truths. This is because most of the others have popped their trinkets at the beginning of the fight. However, once all stacks are up, popping Avenging Wrath will quickly boost one's numbers to the ranks of 3 Countess God. this particular fight, it's not a bad idea to try to time one's Divine Storm with the frozen orbs that are patrolling the room. This will help to maximize DPS through use of splash damage. One last thing to consider is that if the fight is expected to last a while, using Avenging Wrath immediately at the start would be advised to maximize the time that a second Avenging Wrath can be in effect. Let's talk about Divine Storm. This ability is the only ability besides Consecration that allows one to AoE towards one's back and sides. Also, it does not require full melee range, which is extremely helpful on large pulls. One can see from this pull in Gundrick that after the tank pulls the first group, he shortly after pulls the pats that are quickly incoming. Note that as the pats come in, Divine Storm hits them. The ability for Divine Storm to hit targets from the back is very helpful when one is on the run or repositioning oneself in combat. The last thing we will cover in this tutorial is range. While certain abilities will do far more damage than others, there are times that one will not be able to use them because they are too far away from the target. Therefore, a range priority must be set up to help keep DPS up in certain fights. The priority of range abilities is Hammer of Wrath at 30 yards, Exorcism at 30 yards, Judgment at 10 yards, Divine Storm at 8 yards, and Crusader Strike at melee range. Here is a visual to help demonstrate the different abilities range from a target. Once again, Hammer of Wrath and Exorcism at 30 yards, Judgment at 10 yards, Divine Storm at 8 yards, and Crusader Strike at melee range. In this example from the last boss of Nexus, one can see that the Death Knight pop Army of Dead, which is the tank and melee's worst nightmare. Since aggro is everywhere, the boss turns in every direction and knockbacks from the tail swipe that would normally be avoided send the Ret Paladin far out of melee range. As the Paladin runs back in, Exorcism and Hammer of Wrath are cast to minimize DPS downtime. On fights like Margwar and ICC, proper use of range is crucial for maximizing DPS. Thanks for watching this video. If anyone has any questions or comments, please feel free to post.